This is Felicia Day, and this is my podcast, you guys. Welcome. It is I guess it is 318. My lucky number is 319. True story. I think I told this before, but I'm going to tell it again, okay? 319 were the three numbers that I picked when I was 12, and I won the lottery. I won $500. My dad gave me $1. He gave my brother $1, and he said, okay, go buy a lotto ticket or save it. My brother saved it and went, you wasted your $1. I did a pick 3 and 319 and I won $500. So there you go. Always waste your money. Anyway, it is quarantine time. I cannot believe the world right now. It's a little bit insane, except it's not. I've always looked at history and I thought, wow, people still lived through all these crazy, times. The Great Depression, the plague, all these, battles. I mean, a semblance of real life has to go on, right? Sleeping, eating, foraging for food, taking care of your family. And so this is kind of a sample of what people long ago probably experienced all the time, the chaos and the danger of disease. I mean, we are so lucky. If you look at history, what everyone had to deal with on a daily basis, with friends getting sick and going off to war and losing people so much. We really haven't dealt with death a lot, and I think that's why a lot of us are very afraid. I am kind of concerned. I wasn't concerned at all. I think I said that last podcast, and I was like, I'm not worried at all. And of course now I'm like, oh, you're educated now. You are dumb. It's just hard to absorb, all right? Anyway, shout out to, first of all, Sean Sandy Looky Look, who maintains the Wikia for this podcast. I want to give him a shout out. It's felicitations.fandom.com. If you go to that website, he painstakingly does show notes for these podcasts, and you can find literally anything I'm talking about on there. If you want to look up just the books I talk about, there is a category, games, etc. Also, all the community hangs out on discord.gg/Felicia Day. There's a whole COVID-19 column in there, a whole chat room. Very, very constantly updated from people around the world. It's really interesting to see everyone's perspectives from Australia, Europe, Asia. It's really fascinating to see how this is affecting everybody at once. So, okay, that's the negative part, that we're all under quarantine. And hopefully, if you aren't, please quarantine yourself. It doesn't matter if you're a healthy person. It doesn't matter if you yourself are not worried about being sick. Please quarantine yourself for the people who are immunocompromised, people who are older. Like the mortality rate above 70 and 80 is very high. So if you have anyone you love or know anyone who loves somebody who's older than you, then just stay inside. It really isn't that big a deal. We have the internet. If we didn't have the internet, if the internet goes down, there's going to be some serious stuff going down. But in the meantime, just stay safe. I am in my house with my partner who has some lung issues, and also my baby who's 3. I still have my nanny coming to watch the baby sometimes. I'm trying to be a little bit more. This is only day 3, I guess, but I'm going a little bit crazy with the hobbies. I'm personally happy about this. I'm not happy for anybody getting sick, but I love being in my house. If I never had to leave my house, I would be like A-okay with it. I am in the zone. I was homeschooled, as you guys know. I was homeschooled. I didn't really get out of my house often except for lessons. My mom never really allowed me to go to sleepovers. We never really went places like museums and stuff. We just went to like play rehearsals and dance classes, and that's it. So like, I feel comfortable in a way that I've not felt comfortable in a very long time. And the fact that Hollywood is shut down, I am ecstatic, you guys. And I'm not sure what that will mean for me going forward. There's certain things I love doing, like acting, and some of the things I've been trying to do, like writing and producing, have been really frustrating for me over the years, and I really miss digital content, and I just miss having fun doing the things that I do rather than trying to check the boxes of a lot of other people. So I was a little down last podcast, but now I'm just like so happy because not only am I working on projects that I know Hollywood will have no use for, because hey, why not? They're not in business right now, but also I'm just scratching my learning itches. This is an awesome time to like really explore who you are. I mean, I don't want to push my book necessarily, but Embrace Your Weird is a good book to be doing now if you have downtime, because, when do we often get a chance to really get to know ourselves better and explore, just hobbies that have nothing to do with our work or, our friends. I think social media and socialization often get in the way of our just kind of finding who we are and what could be an awesome hobby for us. So I picked up the mandolin, which I've had in my closet for, oh my gosh, 2-3 years. I'm so excited. And, the mandolin is something, I have a ukulele, but, the guitar and the ukulele are, somebody texted me. The guitar and the ukulele are strung in fourths. And the violin, which I used to be a professional violinist, it's strung in fifths. So I got a mandolin a couple years ago just because I was like, well, this has got to be easier to pick up because I just instinctively know the tuning. Not as easy as I thought because it's fretted and the violin has no frets and it's so small. But I have to say, after 2 days, I have picked it up so fast compared to the ukulele and the guitar. And I learned my first song. I learned Greensleeves and I uploaded a video, and I have to say that it was so fun. I'm not, professional singer. Sometimes I am, actually. I'm not a professional ukulele player or a mandolin player or a violinist anymore, but just being able to play a song and learn something and say, wow, that did not happen 2 days ago. It is really, really gratifying. I'm also doing, a little bit of coursework. My friend Jonah Ray has a podcast right now. It's like, I guess it's something about just calling people up who are, homebound. And he called me the other day and I was like, I'm in my zone. I'm doing mandolin and I'm doing a Yale lecture series on Greek history. And he's like, of course you are, Felicia. So that's me. That's Felicia Day. So the Yale lecture series, there's so many resources online, you guys, for learning something. MIT has an open course situation too. Some of these are a little more formal than you might want just for like hobbyists. I would recommend SciShow is a website, it's a YouTube channel, and it's done by Hank and John Green, and it's just so brilliant in that if you want to learn about economics or history or science, there's just great, easy videos to just get your feet wet in any of it before you dive in deeper. The Yale lectures are really interesting because they're just straight lectures from some of the best professors in the world, and I've been obsessed with Greek history for a while, and there's a Greek history one that I've been listening to. There's an early Middle Ages one that I want to listen to from 285 to 1000, which is kind of interesting because those are kind of the dark ages, what's going on there. And then there's a course called on human emotions that sounds really interesting because why do we cry? What's going on in there? I don't know. So that's at youtube.com/Yale courses. And if you guys have any other resources, leave them in a comment or just send them to me on Twitter. Also, send me any questions, #felicitations. Send them to me on Twitter because I need questions. I'm lonely, except I'm not. Yeah, I am a little bit. Anyway, I've been reading a lot of books. I read a book called, I noticed I'm not very good at keeping up on the books that I said I'm going to read. So the 2 books I said I was going to read this week, I didn't read. So I'm going to read those next week. That would be Last of the Amazons by Stephen Pressman and Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. I'm doing those next week. But I did read about 4 books this week. First of which was American Sherlock by Kate Winkler Dawson. And it was about this guy who was the American Sherlock. He was in California and Oregon, and he had kind of an OCD situation going on, but he solved all these amazing crimes, and he pioneered forensic investigation and profiling in a really fascinating way. He's kind of like Tony Shalhoub and Monk, except like super serious and always having money problems. So really interesting. The writing is really good, and I wanted some nonfiction that was a change of pace for me, and I'm not a huge true crime fan, but like some of, there's a Fatty Arbuckle, that 1930s bad guy, actor who, had a situation with a lady and she died, and it's really interesting. So I don't know. Also, it's just set in the 20s and the 30s, which I think is a really fun history time to be alive. Prohibition basically did the opposite of what it was supposed to do. It increased crime by thousands of percents. And it's like, oh, if you ban stuff, the crime flourishes. Who would have thunk? So that's what's, that book is really interesting. I got a preview copy of a book called All Our Broken Idols by Paul Cooper. You may recognize Paul Cooper's name from the Fall of Civilizations podcast, which I urge you, if you do not listen to it already, he is incredible. It is his British dulcet tones describing how, millions of people died and how their civilizations collapsed. It's so good. It's so well researched. And this is a fiction book he wrote. I guess it's his second one. And it sort of juxtaposes a young girl back in the time of the Hittite like ancient Israel area or ancient Turkey, and a modern day Iraqi archaeologist. And so it's really fascinating. I'm almost done. It's not a light read, and it's not particularly uplifting in some respects, but it's just really fascinating. And of course, well researched and just really, really well. I hope it ends on an up note, but who knows? If not, it's fine. It's really good. I also, given the COVID stuff, which is crazy, you guys. So Richard Gagnon is one of the people who asked me a lot of questions. Thank you, Richard. Asks, coronavirus will probably already be a topic in my next podcast because how could it not be? How are you dealing with it, and how is it impacting your projects and work? Well, the good thing, Richard, is that before I go into the other books I read on the Black Plague, I will answer that question. I'm a little bit scared. I just worry for my family, the people I know, the fans out there who are immunocompromised. I worry about my people who I know who make their living at conventions, that's part of what I do for a living as well. I love it so much, so all of us have to find other ways to support ourselves. And I really, really, my heart goes out to like the cosplayers and the artists and the game stores and the comic book stores and my agent for conventions. Like everybody's world is collapsing right now just in 1 week. And I don't know how hard it's going to be, but it's just really breaking my heart. I want to help other people out. I have to help my family too. We're all in the same boat here. And so I hate seeing a whole ecosystem and a whole culture and a whole community fall apart so easily. I guess it makes me realize how fragile everything is. It all is just teetering on the edge, and one slight little push. I was listening, the Greek history thing was all about sort of in 1200 BC, basically all the civilizations around the Mediterranean collapsed. It was the end of the Bronze Age, right? And nobody really knows why. I watched a couple of lectures on it the other day, and they think it's a combination of some climate change, a drought, which could be linked to the climate change, migration of people, forcing other people out, actual warfare, internal warfare, earthquakes. So it seemed like a bunch of stuff at once happened to sort of literally wipe out all the ruling civilizations. Like as if the United States government, Russian government, Chinese government, Europe all went under, and basically all that structure went away. And so there was a dark age. And the same thing happened after the fall of the Roman Empire. And I'm like, is this happening now? So I got scared and of course dug in on it. So I listened to The Collapse of the Bronze Age, which is really fascinating, you guys. If you know anything about Homer or ancient Greek literature and mythology, it's really interesting. I think Fall of Civilizations podcast has a really fascinating episode on it. It's really, and it's not so depressing. I mean, it is a little depressing, but it is what it is. But it's an interesting point at which there was a kind of a globalization of the area. Like everybody was trading with each other. Everybody was going back and forth. You could find Greek stuff in Egypt and Egyptian stuff in the Israeli area. And so it's really interesting. There's a lot of modern parallels between the global connections back then on a much smaller scale and us on this whole globe, and all of this happening right now. It's terrifying to see the stock market, which has Calliope's, college fund in it, and any, IRA that you have. I'm sure we're all very nervous about, when we're old, are we going to take care of ourselves? That's the least of our worries. Our children are not in school. Everybody is frightened, and I hope that it doesn't bring out the worst in people. I see a lot of good coming out of it, people wanting to help, and that's really wonderful. So anyway, that was my answer to that question. And then, of course, I dovetail that back to the Black Plague. So I got really into the Black Plague a couple of months ago. There was a project that somebody kind of wanted me to pitch on. And I was like, I'll just research the Black Plague because I've researched it over and over again in my life. It's so fascinating because, we're talking about maybe a 3% mortality rate up to a 15% mortality rate in over 80-year-old people for this COVID, which is very dangerous compared to everything that we've, dealt with now in recent history. But the Black Death was essentially 60%, 70% death rate. Like seriously, if you got it, there was a pneumatic kind, and there was also a blood infection kind that literally could kill you within hours if you got it. And so it's really terrifying what happened there and the collapse of every single society. one of the interesting things I read was the only place that really kind of survived were the places who really quarantined themselves. Like in Romania, I think there were some areas that totally cut themselves off. And then in Milan, where basically in Italy this started, the Black Plague started supposedly because I guess there was a fight in kind of Turkey. Anyway, they were flinging, corpses over the walls into the I think it was the Tartars, and they flung infected corpses over the wall, thinking they were going to drive them out, but they actually infected them. All the Christians got on boats, got out of there, and then they hit Genoa, Italy, and that's where basically the plague started because they were carrying the fleas and the rats and all that stuff. There's lots of different theories about how it spread and how fast, but basically it spread along the Mediterranean coast where these ships were trying to dock. So it was like plague vector number one was those ships. So anyway, Milan was the only one of the only places who avoided it because literally if you got it, they would brick you and your family up in your house and not let you out until you were dead. That's how extreme they dealt with it, and that was why Milan was one of the least ravaged places. Isn't that fascinating? And so it was over like an 18-month period where 60 to 70% of Europe died out. And it made its way up. So can you imagine? Okay, so there's a great book called From the Brink of Apocalypse by John Aberth, and that's what I read. It has sort of an informative history kind of perspective on it. Just talking about basically nobody had wills. There were no people to inherit estates. Like there were so many people dying that, and crazy behavior like flagellation, killing of Jews, like the whole society's collapsed in an incredible way because nobody knew what was going on. They didn't know about germs. They didn't know how to stop it. All doctors were completely useless at the time. And it created this revolution afterwards where doctors were like, hey, we've been using these old ancient Greek texts for a while and we actually don't do hands-on stuff. We need to up our game as doctors, right? We need to use our personal experience versus these ancient books. So it's really interesting. So, but anyway, it's like as if the flood line kept creeping up and up and up. And there's a great book called The Black Death, A Personal History by John Hatcher. And this book is written in a fictional way, but it's completely filled with it's based on complete truths and incredible records in the North or the central England at the time. And I think it's 1348 or something like that. And so they drew upon facts. This author drew upon facts to describe how it would have been like to live in these cities while the plague was basically catching up to you. So it's really, really fascinating. And I might have mentioned this book before, but I would urge you if you want to kind of have a really surreal sort of parallel till now, which in a much more extreme way, I would recommend that book because it is a fictional account, so it's a little easier than just a straight nonfiction about all these people died. Anyway, okay, so that is my recommendation for depressing reads during this very depressing time. Again, I am sorry for the mic situation. I have no studio. It's really the worst time in the world to have my studio torn down because I would be streaming 3-4 hours a day. It's actually might come to that. I might actually be a professional Twitch streamer after this week if everything doesn't get a little bit better because A, I'm gonna going crazy. B, I miss my community, and C, I'm not going to be able to work for months. Why not just do what I love? I'm excited about it. Okay, so and so I'll be streaming, on the weekend. I might just pop in more often. I don't know. But I have been playing this new game called Roundguard, and I wanted to give it a shout out. It's a little indie game. It's on Switch and Apple Arcade and on PC and Steam. And it's basically a RPG Peggle. And I streamed it the other night, but I also played it alone last night just for fun. And it is so great, y'all. It's so fun. It's just really everything that you want. It's kind of hard, because I'm bad at it. But at the end of the day, if you want a really quick game that's not requiring I got to sit down and read a tome, which I love. I love Disco Elysium so much. But unless you play 2 hours, you're not scratching the itch. You can play 30 minutes of this. Same thing with Dicey Dungeons. Those are my two favorite go-tos right now. And they're just really fun. Basic, awesome games. So big shout out to them. Okay, let's do a couple questions. Rocket Soup says, as someone who identifies as an anxious person, how do you resist the urge to let your world shrink and take fewer risks? The urge plagues me a lot. Thank you. I deal with that a lot. I did mention last time that I'm on Lexapro, and I started that for the first time ever. And I was acting last week out of the country, and which was very scary because that was the day when everything went down. A lot of productions were shutting down as I was on set, and it was super, super jarring because everyone was like, what is happening to our world? I'm glad I got out of Canada. That's all I got to say. And I have to tell you, for the first time in my whole life, I was acting on set and didn't feel terrified before action was yelled. I had such a good time working. I had to do some emotional stuff. I had to do funny stuff. And I have to tell you, it was like night and day. So I am having like, there are a couple things that, I don't know, I'm going to talk to the doctor about, as far as like, I'm not very motivated right now. And I also, having like, it's hard to recall things, just like facts. I know they're under there, but it's kind of hard. I'm like, is that just me or is that the drug? So anyway, I'm going to check in with my doctor next week, but I have to tell you, I'm on a very low dose of this stuff and my life couldn't be different. I'm sleeping for the first time. And I went over some diary entries for research for another project I'm doing. And I realized the last 2 years, I have just been an anxious bundle of death. I mean, it's really been tough. And just reading these entries, I'm like, wow, I've been suffering for a long time. And something happened in my life after I had a baby to really put me on this anxious cycle, and I couldn't get out of it because I think the fact I couldn't sleep. So it's really helped me in that respect, just being able to sleep without anxiety, especially during this super anxious time right now. So that's not really the point. I'm still anxious, as you can tell from everything I say out of my mouth. And I think that, you have to be gentle with yourself. Like, there's a fine balance between forcing yourself to do something all the time and, wanting to do it. I think sometimes we try to make ourselves do something as an anxious person that we don't want to do because we have this idea that we should do it, or we have an expectation of ourselves that we should be better or it should be easier for us. And I think that sometimes you just have to allow yourself to be a little okay with that. And once you comfort yourself and say, you know what, I'm going to take care of you and not force you into that uncomfortable position, the next time it's a little bit easier because your body knows that you are going to be protected. I think, in my book, I read a lot about anxiety, of course, and a lot of it is just about being a good parent to ourselves because our anxiety is a sad, a girl or a boy or a person inside of us who thinks that we're going to be in danger. And so assuring yourself that you're not going to be in danger is kind of the key. So if you have a situation where you think you're going to be in danger or be rejected or be embarrassed or be out of your depth, then take steps to be like, okay, these are the things that I'm going to help you through this. I like to think of myself as another person when I go into that situation. Like if I thought about Calliope being a really anxious person, the things that I do if I were going to introduce her to a new school or a new social situation, how would I prepare her? Well, why don't I do the same care for myself? I think once we're adults, we don't have parenting, and I think sometimes we need it. So I would urge you to do that. And then rather than always forcing yourself all the time to do scary things, just pick one thing and make it something that you know you'll enjoy the end result of, but the interim is kind of the scary part. It's the getting over the let's do it hump that is hard for me. Like even phone calls. I look at a phone call and I have such dread in my stomach and I'm like, okay, just plunge in. And it does feel like going into a cold bath of water. But when I do it, it's over and I'm like, oh, that wasn't so bad at all. So yeah, that's my advice. And believe me, I have to exercise it every day. So be a good parent to yourself and just kind of rip the Band-Aid off sometimes if it's something that you know you'll enjoy the end result of. Crystal Kepper asks, did your doctor recommend a specific brand of digestive enzymes? Crystal, my doctor recommended Pure Encapsulations. That is the brand that I have. And I've used other digestive enzymes before. This one is the one that works for me the best. I literally can have it and I have a noticeable reduction in acid reflux. If you guys are doing supplements, like, listen, I'm not an expert and I actually am very skeptical of supplements. A lot of the times, like, I don't believe they work. I think it's always better to get your supplements in food rather than pills. You don't know what they're putting in them. So I would urge you to go to labdoor.com or some other, sort of third-person testing and figure out what brand actually has what's in the pill, because I think that's a problem. There's no regulation of vitamins. Not like, if you go and get a prescription for something or if you get an Advil, there's a legal definition of what's in that pill and they have to, they're liable and it's being regulated by the government. Thanks to, I believe, Orrin Hatch, vitamins and supplements are completely unregulated. So, you have like methamphetamines and some herbs that people have found in South America and things like that. So They don't have nearly as much, or they have way too much. And, if you have in the pills, and if you have, some of these supplements have interference with regular drugs, so you have to be careful. So I would urge you, if you are taking any supplementation, go talk to your doctor first, because you could be making something worse. That said, the digestive enzymes are the number one thing that I have kept on after that consultation, because I think they really work for me. Lauren Spring asks, did you see that Natalie Portman wrote a children's book with reimagined fables? Oh, that's cool. Are you interested in creating children's books or other kids' entertainment? Lauren, I absolutely am. I have an idea for something, and I believe now that we have downtime that I might actually get around to it. I have to tell you, it is such a relief to have Hollywood on pause, because I have 3 to 4 projects I am so excited to do. They are not, one's a comic book, one's a book, one's a stage thing. And these are the things that I can't stop thinking about, but I always put them on hold to try to get Hollywood to get something. And yeah, it's nice to work in Hollywood, but none of the stuff I've worked on has gotten made for years. And I'm just, the acting is really cool. Oh, by the way, I didn't mention Puka. Puka Lives is a movie that I produced and I act in, and that's going to be out April 4th on Hulu. It's an Into the Dark series from Blumhouse. My friend Ryan Koppel, he's my producing partner. He wrote the script. I helped cast some of my friends: Jonah Ray, Malcolm Barrett, Lindy Greenwood, Gavin Stenhouse, my friend Will Wheaton, Rachel Bloom make appearances. So this is actually, it is a Felicia Day affair, and I have to tell you, it was so fun to shoot. I don't want to tell you very much about it. It's a sequel to another movie that they did last year, but you don't really need to know the first movie at all. But if you want to, it's on Hulu as well. And it was such a dream to do. It was a low-budget movie. It was hard. It was during the fires, so we got fired out. We got burnt out of a couple of locations. It was just crazy. Oh my gosh, the last year has been crazy. But the script is so fun and funny. The action sequences are great, and I don't want to reveal more, but I think you guys are going to like it. So definitely put it on your calendar. So anyway, yes, there is a kids project that I want to get to. I'm trying to be realistic about what I can actually do and what I can't do. But yeah, it's hard to prioritize right now, because I almost feel like a kid in the candy box. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm on vacation. There's no auditions, no nothing. I can't think about Hollywood. This is wonderful. And so I have all these awesome things. I have maybe some digital stuff I want to do. I need to just focus and settle on one thing and see it through. And so that's what I'm trying to work on this week, to just get one thing at a time done, because I'm not going to be learning French and the mandolin and finishing all the courses in history on Yale. It's not happening, Felicia. So be realistic and get something actually done. Last question, Mark Lewis asks, do you have a role that you played that you find yourself thinking about more than others? Well, Mark, I think that Supernatural and Charlie is something I'm thinking about quite a bit, because I know the show is ending soon. I would hope that I get to go back, but they're on hiatus right now for the last several episodes, so I don't know what's going on. But Charlie, it's been 8 years, and I think I mentioned this before, but I shot that episode, the first Charlie episode, when I was launching my company, Geek and Sundry. And I know that you guys have heard the ups and downs of that company. I love so many things I got to do. I had to leave it because it was taking such a toll mentally and physically on my body, and I had a baby, and I had to sort of prioritize my life in a way that I had to leave some stuff I love behind. And now it seems like the company, from the looks of it, is just kind of gone in a sense. And it makes me sad, but at the same time, through all that stressful time, I made some wonderful stuff, and a wonderful community came out of it. And also, Supernatural was like a beacon of light for me. Every time I got to be Charlie on set, I knew that she was impacting somebody else beside myself. Also, she was a character I just loved to escape into. She was like a braver, bolder, more confident version of me in a way. And I just loved being her, and I loved how she impacted people, especially teen girls. For me, if I had had a role model like that, I would have gotten, been a lot more bold about who I was earlier in my life. And so the fact that she's helped anybody come out of the closet, to be a programmer or a gamer or just a confident geek, has been just so rewarding. And it reminds me of a job is a job. I can show up on set and I can act in something just as a job, and that's fine. But the roles that really impact people, and the roles that I bring with me every day, like Penny from Dr. Horrible and Codex from the Guild, and Charlie from Supernatural, like Eureka, Holly, like all these characters I've been privileged to play mean something to me and mean something to other people. And it is a really good lesson that just working isn't going to be enough for me as a person. And I need that sort of meaning underneath to be happy. And so hopefully you guys have that in your life as well, because I think unless we have that, maybe not at our work, but in our hobbies. And maybe you're a person who has a job and you're not really happy at it. And this could be a time when you have a little bit more time off. Yes, the insecurity is really awful, but you're a person who has a lot more to offer the world than you are offering right now. I know it. We all do, right? We all are infinitely interesting, like I say in my book. And so I urge you to, even if it's just one thing, picking up crocheting or trying a recipe that you never tried before. This is the way we grow and we learn. We challenge ourselves and we don't get stuck. I watched an hour and a half of TikTok in my bed the other day, and it feels like it was a waste of time, but at the same time, I felt more in touch with a younger generation, a platform I never knew about. I started getting excited about just things I was watching. I was very sure that this is a platform I'm never going to create for, and that's okay because I'm enjoying myself. I learned how to do a smoky eye a lot more competently. And it was just really enjoyable. So explore the world, explore yourselves. Look at the positives in this, because there are lots of negatives that could hold us down and create anxiety and allow us to sort of dive into that depressing area. But there are a lot of ways to reach out, get on the Discord, and reach out into yourself and find something new that surprises you about yourself. Okay, you guys, that will be the podcast for this week. I hope you have a safe couple of weeks. I will see you in a couple of them. Maybe I'll see you on one of my streams at twitch.tv/Felicia Day. Check the Discord announcements channel for the times. Usually on a weekend night, I am there playing some games. Come join us. All right. Thanks. Bye.